Naseema, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here because your story is absolutely incredible. You paid off almost $1 million in about 2 years, and we're going to dive into the strategies that you have to share with folks about how they can start to tackle their debt. I think debt is something that is at a lot of people's minds right now, especially in this inflationary environment where we feel like every dollar is doing less. And so I think this is a really good time to have this conversation. So let's start off with you introducing yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi. So first and foremost, I am a labor and delivery nurse. I'm a mom. When I started my financial journey, I created a platform called Financially Intentional. And the goal is to create more nurse and BIPOC millionaires because it's possible. We just have been gatekept of this information for so long. So I share my story, just encourage people to follow the path to financial freedom.
I love that you mentioned that, this information is gate kept because it really is. I don't know about you, but I didn't learn shit about money when I was growing up. And I'd be curious to know what your money story was growing up. What are some of the things that you saw? How do you think they shaped how you started to move with money as you became an adult?
I grew up in West Oakland, raised by a single dad. We struggled. So money was something that was kind of hard to come by, but was never taught like how to properly manage money. I knew how to make money because basically that was the only way that I can get the things that I wanted because my dad was not about to pay for it. Like he was one of those kind of people like, here's $20 for the week for your lunch money, make it enough. And so in order to get things that I wanted, I always had to hustle. So I was hustling since I was 5 years old, making money, but was never taught anything about money. And then I thought being rich or having a lot of money was for those other people because I was always like the one of two in an all white school or something. So it was like, that's for them, it's not for me. And so that's how, I built my mindset around money.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely relatable. It feeling like the conversation is for other people and not for us. I'm curious if your career in healthcare was shaped in any way by your desire to have money. Because I think a lot of Black and Brown folks think like the only way to get wealthy is to become a doctor or work in healthcare in some capacity, be a lawyer.
Actually, no. For me, it was more or less like go to school and get a good job by any means necessary. Like that's how you make it. And so I was always that one that everybody knew was going to be successful, always got the good grades. I got into a good college, all of those kind of things. And to my family and friends, that equals making it. But it didn't factor in that I had $200,000 in student loans when I was done. It didn't factor in, like, really, like, how much are you really making depending on your career when you get out of school? And so that's why you see, like, the number of educated Black women out there are great and is growing, but still our net worth, like, is $10 because we have so much debt. And so we're not building wealth. And so I was just taught like make it by any means necessary, but because people don't understand what wealth truly is, like they don't factor in those costs and the opportunity cost of going to school versus starting working in a career and saving and investing and all of those kind of things are way past like what most people think about. So yeah, none of that stuff factored into where I was at.
Yeah, that's good to know. And it's important that we talk about the different perspectives of like how we end up in these places where we figure out that we weren't necessarily taught all the lessons that we needed to learn as adults. Because I got the same message. It's like, get the stable job, get the 401k, get the pension, you'll be good. That's what we do. And then there's no thinking beyond what that looks like. So I'm curious, as your career progressed and your personal life started to evolve as well, what were the things that were happening that were your first inclination that like something is not right financially?
I had all the things, right? I had the house, the job, the car. I was making six figures for years, but I was hella broke and it just didn't make sense to me. And so I had to figure out why am I so broke? And also, sometimes we don't do things for ourselves, but we'll do things for other people. So I had this child that was dependent on me. And I was like, if something were to happen to me, I don't have anything for her. I had to put myself in a position where I got in control of my money. And so that's where the tables turned for me. It was like, it's now or never. I can't be broke forever. And it started in my mid 30s.
Okay. I've read a little bit about your story. You tackled bankruptcy, divorce. Even one of those things could be the thing that derails you financially. So, first, how did you get to the place where that was your reality? And then, how did you start to plan your escape from what could be a lifelong journey of struggle?
My bankruptcy came luckily earlier in my 20s, so I did have some time to bounce back, but it came in a similar market like this. It was the early 2000s. I started buying houses because that's what people told me you do to build wealth. So I was getting my master's in healthcare administration. The next thing, like people was like, okay, well, buy a house. So I bought a house and they were like, well, then you should start investing and buying these other houses. So I bought all these other houses. By the time I was 25, I had 5 houses, but then the market fell from underneath us. Nobody was paying their rent. I wasn't making enough money to cover the rent on $1 million worth of houses. I went through that lesson, having to do 2 short sales, 2 foreclosures, ultimately having to file bankruptcy. Did a career change in that time period and went back to nursing school. The divorce didn't happen until I was in this journey of paying off my debt. So during that almost 3 years, I got married, went through an abusive marriage, then filed for a divorce in that process. So before I paid off my debt, and right before I paid off my debt and was about to be debt free, actually, I ended up having to pay my abusive husband a settlement. So, like, all this stuff people think is like so linear, like you figure it out, you're on your way. And it's not like that. It's a lot of stops and restarts in the process. But I tell you, because I was in this process of paying off my debt and taking control of my money, it made that financial hit from all the things that happened a lot easier to sustain and recover from. I think a lot of things tie into the mindset shift that happens when you start to take control of your money. Because, yeah, stuff is going to come up, but it's how you're able to respond in those situations. Even though I had to pay for my divorce, I still was able to pay off nearly $1 million in debt in under 3 years, in spite of, not because of the things that I had.
That's super inspirational, right? Because I think it's such an important reminder that life is going to life and we're going to have to figure it out regardless. So it's like you're going to decide if the money's going to control you or if you're going to control it. So let's talk about the debt. So, what did that debt actually consist of overall?
Yeah, it was totally normal debt. So you think most people are like, well, how the hell you get in $1 million in debt, right? First of all, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so that debt did consist of my house. And
Yeah,
did
you
I
said
sell
that
my
with
house
just
and
one
just pay
house.
off all my debt? Yeah, that's just I have a house now. It's like, did I sell that house and just pay off all my debt? No. What happened is that I had $200,000 in student loans. I had a loan against my 403b to pay the down payment for my house. I had car loans. I had debt from my ex-husband. All of those things, totally normal debt. And towards the end, after I had like $50,000 worth of debt, which included paying my husband an IRS bill, which was one of my biggest mistakes, when I had like that debt left is when I sold my house. Because I mean, my house, it was filled with a whole bunch of traumas. I didn't want to live there. It wasn't about just paying off my debt. It was about a house is a house. Let me leave this place, start over. And so that accounted for the $1 million in debt.
Got it. You essentially paid off this debt in 3 years.
Under 3 years.
That's an incredible amount of time to pay off even a tenth of that amount. But the fact that you were literally looking at almost 7 figures worth of debt, I think is incredible. How do you first make the decision to tackle this instead of hide from it? Those types of numbers could just make you be like, you know what? This is going to be my life. I'm just going to have to
Yeah.
accept it.
And that is a lot of people's reality, right? Because when I signed up for those loans, I was 18 years old. I couldn't even imagine those numbers. When I saw the numbers on my financial aid paperwork, I was like, these aren't real to me. So I'm not really going to deal with it. And then, like, people have student loan debt, they tell you it's good debt, whatever. It wasn't until I started going through this process that I realized that something has to happen with this debt. Something has to happen with this $200,000 in student loans that I was paying $1,900 a
Oh
month
my
in.
God.
I had to get real on who I owed and what I owed. And most people don't understand that. Most people don't even know how much they bring in home every day and really conceptualize that and see how it's broken down. And that's really why my platform is called Financially Intentional, because I had to be intentional about every debt that I had. I had to be intentional about every dollar that was coming in, and I had to be intentional about how I was spending that money. And so get real, like list out every single thing. And so I just listed everything out.
So once you actually saw the numbers, how did you actually create your plan to tackle them? How did you prioritize what to pay off first? Did you start side hustling to make more money? Tell me like what you did.
I was your avid fan of he who not must not be named. I started following his principles of zero-based budgeting and the debt snowball. So just listed off my debt. And actually, no, I did not increase my income during that time because, like I said, during that time I was going through an abusive marriage and being in and out of being a single mom. So I actually worked less during this time. Ironically, what changed was that every single dollar that I got in is using zero-based budgeting. I gave it an assignment and I prioritized my debt payoff. I was like, listen, I am going to be debt free by my 36th birthday, no matter what. And if I'm going to be debt free by my 36th birthday, this is how much money I need to put towards my debt. And when I created my budget, that's what I prioritized instead of what most people do. I know I need to pay off this amount of month and they say, like, leave it till the end of the month. No, that's the first thing that I prioritized and I adjusted the rest of my money around it. And so, just by zero based budgeting and using the debt snowball, I was able to just attack my debt. And because that was a goal, I hit it or surpassed it every single month.
Yeah, I think it's such an important reminder that when you get out of autopilot and you really start being intentional, things happen much more quickly. I know with my own journey in tackling student loans for the first almost 10 years, I was kind of just like, well, whatever. Everybody has student loans, so we're just going to have to live with it. And then I found out about the financial independence movement and I was like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me if I get rid of this shit, I can stop working? That is a goal. Finding something beyond just like, I want to get out of debt. There has to be a why. How did you stay motivated? Because it's not easy to stay on the path of discipline that's going to get you to this place.
My why was totally my daughter. I knew that if I could get these values down and instill them into her, she would be unstoppable. These kids need to know these financial principles because we weren't taught that. So I'm going to take responsibility and change that for our generation. And that's really who my platform was for. My platform formed for me, my friends, and our girls because I wanted to share the principles with them, but I didn't feel like repeating myself. So I was like, hey, if I create this little social media page where you guys follow it and just listen to, I'll post what I'm learning on here. That's what it was all about. It definitely has to be a strong why to keep you going because it is not easy. In hindsight, it's like, oh my God, this is an incredible feat. But let me tell you, when I was going through it, I was going through it. So yeah, I needed to do it though for my daughter. I needed to do it for my friend's daughter. And now it's so much bigger than me because I see the impact that it has on our people and what we can do to change the things systemically that have held us back for so long.
Absolutely. So I'm curious what you say to the critics who are like, oh, well, she just did this because she sold her house and she lives in a really expensive area. What do you have to say to those people?
They're not my people, so I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Yes,
always gonna be haters. You ain't doing something right unless you got haters. So you're not my people. You're not the ones that I'm trying to help. I don't care. I address it. And like I said, lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Look at the numbers. Look at what I did. It's all documented. Thank God for Instagram and the fact that I have had this page since 2016. You want some receipts? Scroll through, boo. I share all my information. I'm transparent. At the end of the day, like I said, if they really want to know, they can figure it out in the back end. But most of the time, they're just being haters anyway. So it
that's true.
doesn't faze me.
It's always the people who are talking the most that are doing the least. We have a very similar story in that sense that I purchased a home back right around when I started learning about financial independence. And that was another light bulb moment that I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to be in almost $500,000 worth of debt and then be stuck in a job that I don't want to work because I got to pay this damn house. I owned it for less than 3 years. We lost money when we sold it, but for me, it was like worth it. It got such a big load off of my back because now I didn't owe this multiple six-figure debt. At the end of the day, I honestly don't believe in the whole good debt, bad debt shit. I think that's a gimmick that is propagated by some people who make money off of convincing us that we're doing the right thing. But I don't think there's any type of freedom that I personally experienced that is like not owing anybody money. And just giving yourself permission to like question the status quo about what we're told is responsible adulting, I think is really important.
Yep, I totally agree with that. For me, if it's something that everybody mainstream is doing, I typically question it because everybody is broke. When everybody is like, oh, should I buy AMC and games? Relax. That's so stupid. Don't ever follow those trends. If you see that something is trending and everybody is doing it, or everybody is like saying, buy a house, it's the American dream. Like these are the scams we're sold into because capitalism. We got to have poor people in order for the system to work. And so you have to create a mindset to question all of those things because if everybody is doing it, that's normal and normal is broke. And I don't want to be broke. My kids ain't going to be broke. You're not about to do those things. I think people need to start questioning like, why am I doing these things? Am I doing these things because they actually make sense or I'm doing them because somebody told me I need to do it or that's the norm? And then look at those people and see where they at. You want to be like that?
And not the Instagram version of their lives, like the real life version of their lives. You need to know because they're not the same.
Facts.
All right, let's talk about now that you have become debt free and you've actually been able to build your net worth to six figures. What has that process been like for you? Like, how did you start to educate yourself on what wealth building actually is?
This was one of the things I'm telling you, like, I feel like this is how I know we were gay kept because the shit is so fucking easy. And it's just like, what? People didn't tell me it was this easy, number one, to make money, then to build wealth, and that I don't have to work for the rest of my life. I did not discover like the financial independence movement until I was like at the tail end of paying off all my debt. By that time, I had built those muscles. I had built that discipline so that whatever financial goal I wanted to meet, I could. I was just like, bet. So I just got to start investing aggressively, and investing looks this easy. Now I understand what I'm actually invested in and paying in fees. And you mean to tell me I've been paying these people to do this basic ass shit for me and I can do it better and cheaper and make money faster? That's what I'm about to do. And so I tell you, like, the one book that really changed my perspective on investing, because after losing all those houses and having to file bankruptcy, I was nervous about investing and I had real cause to it, right? I had to
Absolutely.
reset my whole life. But the one book that changed everything for me was J.L. Collins' Simple Path to Wealth. And when he broke it down like that, I don't understand how we aren't taught this because I share these concepts with my 3 and 8 year olds and they get it. They can understand it and they can repeat it back to people. And people think my kids are geniuses. And I'm just like, they are not. It's basic information, but we just weren't taught this. Once I figured out how to invest and that is hella simple and that I could actually read these prospectuses because it doesn't seem overwhelming because they send you like 50 million pages with Bible font with the thin papers, like to make it seem intimidating, it's actually not once you understand what it is. And so I just started investing aggressively, put that same rigor that I had in paying off my debt into stacking money. And it just happened. I literally was in debt and now my net worth is almost at $1 million. And
Wow.
just because I just understood these basic concepts.
Yeah, it's incredible. I always tell people you're always one decision away from like a completely different life. And when you start to compound those decisions, they compound like investments. It's like one thing leads to another.
Exactly. The aggregation of marginal gains.
Mm,
Those little things that you can do every day are so much bigger than that like one big decision that you think you have to make or that one raise that you think you're going to have to get before you can start working on your financial goals. Just do the little things every single day.
yeah. Let's talk about financially intentional, how that came to be and how it started versus now what you do.
I literally just created this platform for me and my friends to have a place to go to talk about money. Once I started sharing my story, people were like, whoa, this is crazy. And so I started getting picked up by podcasts and other media sources because these numbers were freaking crazy. And so I started sharing my story, and then it evolved into people like, can you help me? I'm like, I can't really help you. I'm just, I'm learning myself, but like always trying to just pour back in and share what I learned on the platform. And then a couple years ago, I started to create like little courses and things to kind of formalize that training and have something for people to buy and use as a tool because that's what people were asking for. And so it has evolved into that. And I'm still continuing to grow that side of the platform. But really, it's just about putting the information out there because I know that we need to look at things differently. And the personal finance industry as a whole, and it's definitely changing now with people like us, but as a whole is hella stale and hella whack. And I need to be able to break down concepts that are really actually just basic concepts, but have been overcomplicated for so long for us to understand. Like people need to hear it from somebody who they can relate to in order to process things sometimes. That's my goal. Like I'm gonna break it down for the people in a way that's hella simple.
Yeah, I think that it's such an important reminder that the message doesn't go through unless you relate with the messenger. Because when I first found out about the financial independence movement, I was like, that's just a bunch of white dudes in Silicon Valley working like tech jobs who are living off of $30,000 and making 300,000, and they have no student loan debt. They come from families that already have money. So they're already getting a leg up. So I'm like, clearly that shit's not for me. But then I found Jamila Sufran's podcast, Journey to Launch, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on. There's a Black woman talking about this. Wait a minute. Maybe this is something that I can do too. And so it's really important for us to show up when we have this information, because the financial institutions and like mainstream media doesn't give a shit about educating us. Like you said, this country relies on working class people to keep the economy going. And if too many of us figure this out, it's going to be a problem, I think.
Yeah, and the thing is that we leaving, we be out.
Yeah, I'm done with corporate as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
girl, listen, if I didn't have all these baby daddies, I'd be gone too, okay?
We'll get there. We'll get there. So tell me about why you think it's more important than ever for healthcare workers to be thinking about their exit strategy. Because I know there's a lot of talk of burnout, especially after this pandemic. And I'm curious if you have been hearing folks questioning whether this is a sustainable career, like from a physical and mental health standpoint for the long term. Because it just looks like y'all are being asked to do a lot for a little.
It's horrible, and we saw it a lot during the pandemic. I feel like basically healthcare workers need to be financially independent, not just to be able to exit, but to be able to be the best healthcare providers they can be. If you got that FU money and you're not really tripping off of your job, you can show up as the advocate that you need to be. And that's what happened to me. So, right after I paid off all that debt, after I sold my house, I moved and transferred to a different hospital, and the stuff that I saw happening to Black women in labor was crazy. But I was in a financial position that I didn't have to work there. And so I feel like that empowered me more than all my other coworkers who saw the stuff, but just didn't feel like they could say or do anything to speak up. And so that's why I really advocate for financial independence, because you can speak up and you can bounce when you want to, and you don't have to worry about these systems. So it's bigger than just the burnout factor, which, yes, a lot of nurses are burnt out and are leaving the profession in droves. But when you can have the money to actually stay in the profession, because a lot of people love what they do, they didn't enter this to just bounce and get the money and bounce. That's not why they became healthcare providers. They became healthcare providers because they're truly caring and giving people, and they really want to help people. But the way that these systems are set up is set up for these healthcare organizations to make money and not really to be there for the patients. And I'm still committed to what I'm doing because the rates of Black morbidity and mortality are so high. I feel like if I walked away, I am leaving a big hole and I am all just contributing to that problem. So I get on my employer's nerves. Like my bosses hate me because I speak the fuck up. I'm not about to let nothing happen to my patient. I'm not about to let nothing happen to my coworkers. That's just how I am at any cost. Because at the end of the day, what you gonna do? Fire me?
Right.
I ain't scared. And so that's why I feel like healthcare workers have an obligation to become financially independent, because we can show up fully as the providers that we need to be.
I absolutely love that mindset. I think it's so powerful. And I think that's why we need wealth in the hands of Black and Brown women, period, because we can change the world when we're not surviving, when we're thriving.
And you know what? Wealth transfer is going to happen in the next couple of years where women are going to be the holders of the greatest wealth in the world. And what happens is that women invest in things that actually provide value. Just like when women are educated, we educate more people. Things are going to shift, but we have to stand in that power and we have to understand the power that we have. We have the power to change the world, but we have to embrace it and know how to do it when that time comes, because it's in our lifetime that is going to shift. What are we going to do with it?
Absolutely powerful. For someone who is at the beginning of that journey debt payoff, they're like, Naseema, I am so overwhelmed. Girl, help me. Give me one thing that I could do right now, today, to get me on the path to financial freedom.
I think that people need to change their circle of influence. People need to understand what's possible for them by seeing examples of things of people who have done it, who they can relate to, who look like them. So you need to be following the Yo Quiero Dinero platform, everything that she does. You need to be following the Jamila Sufrans, the Bola Sukumbes, all those people, the rich and regulars, all the people in this space that look like us that are actually doing it because that makes it possible for you. So I always tell people curate your social media to people you aspire to that are actually doing the things that you want to achieve. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to achieve those things because you've made it possible for you. The next thing is don't listen to music in your car. Don't listen to music while you're, cleaning up or running errands. Listen to podcasts. I consumed thousands of hours of personal finance podcasts until I understood those concepts and can repeat them back to my kids in a way that they can understand it. And that became my norm. Like we said earlier, take one action. If one action today is to list on every debt that you owe, do that. Tomorrow, if it's to list out what you're actually bringing in and to set a goal of like how much debt you can pay off or how much you can start investing, do that thing. But take those small actions. Stop trying to wait for some windfall or something that ain't going to happen. You have full control over your life. But people are so often waiting for these outside things to change in order for them to take action. Like, stop playing yourself. Take action today. And you can see I'm really passionate about it because it annoys the hell out of me
I am
because I'm
here
just
for
like,
it.
"Hey, y'all need to stop playing. I'm tired of the games."
Absolutely. Naseema, I know folks are going to want to find out so much more about you, your platform. So tell us where we can find you, what you're up to, and how folks can work with you.
So I'm at Financially Intentional. I mostly hang out on Instagram at Financially Intentional. There's financiallyintentional.com. Whatever I am doing is always going to be in the link in my bio or prominent on my website. So make sure you follow me there. I always have something for the people. So if you want to work with me, there is always going to be a way to do that through the link in my bio. Just some exciting stuff coming up, especially for next year. We're going on a trip with my community. So I'm just inspired to keep on spreading the good word. I'm always accessible on those platforms. So hit me up.
I love it. And I saw you going to Costa Rica to go and preach the
Yes.
gospel of wealth and luxury. I'm here for it.
I love luxury. Like, and so that's a whole other thing, right? It's not about deprivation. It's about doing the things that you love and the things that spark joy with you because you will never continue on this journey if you have a deprivation mindset.
Absolutely. And I think, especially as women of color, we deserve some damn rest and luxury. Okay.
Yes, yes, 100% facts.
Nasima, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of your wisdom, your energy, and your passion for helping us move forward as a community. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.